Hello everyone, this is Dharamveer sir here. So today we are going to start chapter 12 of grade 11 maths, which is introduction to the three-dimensional geometry. And the topic of this video is coordinate axes and planes. So let's start.
We have seen how to locate a point in a two-dimensional plane with respect to its distance from the reference axis. In three-dimensional space, we identify a point with respect to the distances from the three reference planes. Let's see what these reference planes are and how to locate a point in space. We take two planes perpendicular to each other. The intersection of these two perpendicular planes is a straight line. Let's take another plane perpendicular to both the existing planes. With the intersection of this plane with the two existing planes, we get three lines mutually perpendicular to each other. These lines are called axes and are named as X, Y, and Z. The point of their concurrence is called the origin. The origin is denoted by the letter O. By convention, we consider the XY plane as the horizontal plane. Distances are measured starting from the origin. Distances measured in one direction are taken as positive and in the opposite side as negative. For example, the distance measured from the origin along the x-axis along the direction shown is taken as positive. The distance measured from the origin in the opposite side is considered negative. To indicate this, we assign the symbol x dash. A similar convention is followed for calculating the distances along the y and z axes. The plane formed by the x and y axis is called the xy plane. Similarly, the plane formed by the y and z axis is called the yz plane. And the plane formed by the z and x axis is called the zx plane. The xy plane, yz plane and zx plane divide space into 8 octants. Here, XOYZ is an octant. This octant is enclosed by the XYZ axis. Similarly, the other octants are named according to the axis that enclose them. Any point in space is represented with the help of the distances that it measures with respect to the planes. These distances are called the coordinates of the point. Suppose we have a point P in space. The coordinates of this point are x, y, z. Each coordinate individually indicates the shortest distance of the point from the corresponding plane. For example, the coordinate x determines the shortest distance of the point from the yz plane. Similarly, the y-coordinate represents the distance of the point from the zx plane, and z represents the distance of the point from the xy plane. The coordinates of the origin are 0, 0, 0. Having seen the coordinate axis, we will explore how we use the coordinate axis in locating a point in the coordinate space. Given a point in space, we can measure its distance from the coordinate planes. Let's see how. One way is to drop a perpendicular on the xy plane. Let this perpendicular meet the xy plane at point Q. Then, we drop a perpendicular from Q on the x-axis. This meets at a point, say R. Distance OR is the x-coordinate. RQ is the y-coordinate and PQ is the z-coordinate. If we are given the coordinates of a point then we can trace the point as shown. First, we will identify a point, say R, on the x-axis, which is at a distance x from the origin. Next, we draw a perpendicular of length y from point R and parallel to the y-axis on the xy plane to a point, say Q. Lastly, we draw a perpendicular of length z from point Q, perpendicular to the xy plane. We can
So coming to coordinate planes. So the three planes that are determined by the three pairs of axes, that is x-axis, y-axis and z-axis, are called the coordinate planes, and they are represented as yz plane, zx plane and xy plane. So now these three planes, xy, yz and zx, divide the space into 8 parts called as octants, and these 8 octants are named as, you can see there, we have the octant xoyz, octant x dash oyz, x dash oy dash z, fourth is x oy dash z, fifth quadrant you can see is x oy z dash, octant 6 will be x dash oy z dash, x dash oy dash z dash, and last is x oy dash z dash. Now we know that the dash, that is x dash, y dash or z dash, indicate the negative axis. Okay, so whenever we have the point x dash o y dash z dash, it simply means that x dash and z dash, these two coordinates will be negative. Clear? So pause and note down these points. Now we have planes, equations. We have three planes, so they have particular equations. So if we are taking the yz plane, then the equation of the yz plane is x equals to 0, and any point on the yz plane will be 0 yz, because on this plane x is equal to 0. Similarly, the equation for the zx plane will be y equals to 0, and any point on the zx plane is x0 z, because y coordinate is 0. And the equation of the xy plane is z equals to 0, and the coordinate of any point on this plane will be xy 0, because z coordinate on xy plane will be 0. Clear? So pause and note down these points. And coming to the coordinate axis, we have axis x, y, z. So the equation of the x-axis is y equals to 0, z equals to 0. We have learned this in grade 9th also, that if you have to find the equation of x-axis, it is y equals to 0. But since here we are dealing with the three coordinate system, so we are taking y equals to 0 and z equals to 0 for x-axis. Similarly, for the y-axis, the equation will be z equals to 0, x equals to 0. And equation for the z-axis, it will be x equals to 0, y equals to 0. Clear? So pause and note down these points. Now we have octants, 8 parts in which the space is divided. So the sign of any point on these octants is determined using this table. Okay, so if suppose we have any point in the 4th quadrant, then here x will be positive, y is negative and z is positive. Now suppose we have the 8th quadrant, here x will be positive, y is negative and z is negative. Clear? So pause and note down this table. So keeping all these points in mind, let's start exercise 12.1. And the question 1 is, a point is on the x-axis. What are its y coordinate and z coordinate? Now we know that the equation for the x-axis is y equals to 0, z equals to 0. So the y coordinate will be 0 and z coordinate will be 0 for this particular point on the x-axis. Clear? So pause and note down the solution. Moving to question 2. A point is in the xz plane. What can you say about its y coordinate? Since the plane is xz, so it is going to be y equals to 0. Because we know that any point on the xz plane, the coordinate is given by x comma 0 comma z. So the y coordinate is always 0 for any point on the xz plane. Clear? So pause and note down the solution. Moving to question 3. Name the octants in which the following points lie. Now we have certain points are given and we have to find the octant in which they lie. So suppose we are taking the first point, that is 1 comma 2 comma 3. Now here x is 1 which is greater than 0, y is 1 which is greater than 0, z is 3 which is also greater than 0. It means all are measured along the positive axis only. All the axes are positive, so the coordinate will be x, o, y, z. Clear? All taking positive. Now suppose if we have taken the third point, 4 minus 2 and 5 minus 5. So here we can see that x is 4 which is greater than 0, but the y coordinate is minus 2. Now minus 2, that is negative, and z is again minus 5 which is also negative. So we have x along ox, y along oy dash, z along oz dash. So the octant will be x, o, y dash, z dash. X positive, y is the origin, y dash for the negative y, and z dash for the negative z. It's very simple. Just look at the points x, y and z, positive and negative. Then you can determine the axis. Clear? So pause and note down the solution. We have taken the point minus 4 to 5. So here x is minus 4 less than 0, y is 2 positive, z is 5 again positive. So x will be along negative axis ox dash, y will be along positive, that is oy, z along positive, that is oz. So the required octant will be x dash oy z, x negative, y positive, z positive. Clear? And suppose we have taken the seventh, that is minus 3 minus 1 6. So here x is minus 3 negative, y is minus 1 negative, z is 6 positive. So we have x on negative, that is x dash, y on negative, that is y dash, and z on positive, that is oz. So the octant will be x dash o y dash z dash, that is x dash for negative, y dash for negative, and z for positive. Clear? So pause and note down the solution. Moving to question 4, fill in the blanks. We have three parts, the x-axis and y-axis. Taken together determine a plane known as. Now if we are taking x and y-axis only, then the plane is known as xy plane. Second is the coordinates of a point in the xy plane are of the form. Since in the xy plane there is no z, so the coordinate for z will be 0. So the coordinate of any point in the xy plane is xy 0. And the coordinate divides the plane into, we know that they are called octants. So we have 8 octants. Clear? So pause and note down the solution. With this we end the exercise. So solve the sums and also the examples given for the exercise. Thank you and all the best.